Hello and welcome in. My name is Mark, aka the Markster. This is the second video in the FreeCAD series. Today we will be making this funnel model. We're going to demonstrate continuing use of the part workbench. We'll be using a couple cones to make this. We'll also be introducing the thickness function in the part workbench. And we're going to show how to install a macro that we're going to be using in the spreadsheet to make it a little bit less tedious. If you haven't watched video 1, go back and watch that. I talked about in there where to go to download the software. It's freecadweb.org. How to get help on using FreeCAD, some tips on using the forum. Excuse me. We talked about the navigation styles available here in FreeCAD. I'm using the Blender navigation style. We talked about using that to navigate in 3D space. And the combo view, the tree view, the property view, Python console, and the report view. So we covered all that in episode 1. So go back and watch that if you haven't already. Now we're going to go ahead and close this up and make it from scratch. So the first step, let me show you which version I'm using. Help about FreeCAD. Using version 0.19. If you are using a different version, some of these screens might be a little bit different. First, we'll create a new document. And we're going to define our variables. So let's go to the spreadsheet workbench. You can also get to that with the view menu, workbench, spreadsheet. We will create a new spreadsheet using this toolbar icon. I'm going to press F2 and relabel this to SS. SS for spreadsheet. We'll be using 2 cones to make the funnel. A cone is basically the same as a cylinder, except each radius end is different. So you have an angle instead of a straight shape. We'll have one stacked on top of the other. So I'm going to prepend the names of the variables or parameters with SS underscore. Like before, that was another tip we had in video 1. So I need my variables for the funnel. The bottom cone I will refer to as the stem. And we'll have a radius for the stem. That's the smallest hole on the bottom of the funnel. We need a height for the stem height. I'm using the down arrow keys to go to the next cell. And we'll have a middle radius. This is where the 2 cones will connect. They will both share that middle radius. Then we'll have the top cone. So I have a top radius. This will be the largest hole at the top, the mouth of the funnel. And we'll have the top height as well. And we need to know the wall thickness. I believe that's all of the variables that we need. Now you'll recall from video 1 that to create the aliases, we have to right click, Properties, choose the Alias tab, enter the alias in. Now this can be tedious, so we have a macro to help with this function. So we're going to install that macro now. It's called Easy Alias. We'll go to the Tools menu, down to Add-on Manager. We click on the Macros tab. And we'll come down and look for one called Easy Alias. Here it is. And we're going to install, select it. Macro has been installed successfully. Macro is now available from the Macros dialog. Close this, we're done with it. Open the Macro menu, Macros. You see I have quite a few macros installed. And here's Easy Alias. I had it already, I renamed it to Backup. And this is the one I just installed. And we can select the Edit button. This opens up a new window in our 3D view with the text of the macro script. This is Python. I wrote this macro myself. I just added it to the add-on manager today. We can close it. You could execute it from here by pressing the start the play button here, but we're not going to do that. Okay, to use this macro, you highlight the cells that already contain the labels that you're going to use for the alias in the next column to it. So it does require that the column to the left has the text for the variable names, and the column to the right is where the aliases will be put. This does not have to be columns A and B. It could be B and C, C and D, or what have you. All that it matters is that you have to use the column to the left to have the text values for the alias names, and the column to the right will contain those aliases. We can execute the macro from the macro menu, Macros, Easy Alias, and execute the top button up here. And it gave me an error. No spreadsheet selected. Okay, we need to select the spreadsheet and these macros. I'm leaving these mistakes on here because we all make mistakes, and how we recover from the mistakes is a learning experience. Now it worked. I'm going to clear this out, right click, clear. That way if there's a new error, it will catch my attention. As before, we can hover over the cell and verify with the tooltip that our alias has been created. We also see, of course, the yellow background. And that's it for using that macro. It's going to make things a lot easier, a lot less tedious when it comes to creating these aliases. It's worth the trouble, in my opinion. Alright, so now let's go back to our part workbench. We'll add 2 cones. Let's label one cone. I'm pressing F2 on the keyboard. We're going to call it top. And F2 again. We'll call this one stem. Let's begin with the stem. Let me hide the top. I'm pressing the space bar. Hide that one temporarily. Now the stem, one of these radius values, one of these radii is for the top, one is for the bottom. And we see scrolling the wheel, the mouse wheel up and down. Okay, radius 1 is for the bottom. So this is going to be, this radius is going to be the stem radius from our spreadsheet. So I'm going to press the equals key, ss.ss. That shortcut brings up the list of aliases in that spreadsheet. And this is stem radius. We'll press OK. I need to set those values, don't I? Let's go on here. Let's set this one, we're going to use millimeters today rather than converting to inches. I'm going to set this as 5 millimeters. The height of the bottom stem, let's make that 50. We can always come back and change these. This is the beauty of a parametric model. The middle radius, let's make that one 15. Top radius, let's make that one 50. Top height, we'll make it 50 as well. And the wall thickness is going to be 2 millimeters. Okay, we're going to save our file. You should always save your file because FreeCAD is prone to crash and it will be frustrating. Let me clear this again. It will be frustrating to have to redo all of your work again. So radius 1 is 5. Radius 2 of the stem, equal button, ss.ss. This one is going to be the middle radius. And the height equals ss.ss. This is stem height. Alright. Now let's hide that one with the space bar. You can also toggle visibility with the right click and come down here to choose toggle visibility. Now this one we need to move it up, so we're going to use the placement property for that. The placement is worthy of a video of its own. The placement determines the position in 3D space and the rotation. We're not going to rotate, we're going to leave it at 0 degrees, but we will modify the Z coordinate to be the height of the stem height. That's going to place this top cylinder, this top cone, right on top of that bottom cone. Let's make that both visible. And now we see that it's positioned where we want it. It's not sized yet, but we can do that next. So radius 1 is the bottom, radius 2 is the top. press the FX icon to bring up the expression engine, ss.ss to bring up our shortcuts, and we're going to want the top. We're going to want the middle radius for this one. Yep, that worked like we wanted. Equals ss.ss. This one is going to be the top radius. And here we'll set the height equals ss.ss top height. Alright, so that's our, look what happens. That artifact problem is creeping up again. If you run into this, the easy fix, we covered that in video 1, is this toolbar icon. Fit the old content on the screen. This fixes that little issue. And now we can rotate. And we don't have the artifact anymore. We covered the Boolean cut operation in video 1. Let's cover now the Boolean fusion or union operation. We select one of the objects, hold down the control key on the keyboard. This selects both objects, and this toolbar icon here, make a union of several shapes, creates a fusion object. The fusion object, like the cut object, is a Boolean result. The reason we call these Booleans, it goes back to Boolean logic, where if A is true and B is true, then A and B returns a true value. And if A is false, then A and B would be false. So that's an example. You can use and, you can use or. I don't want to spend too much time going into details on that. But the consequence of it is the fusion is an or operation. If either part A or part B is in that given location, then there will be material in that location as a result of the operation. Now we have one fusion object. Now we need to cut our holes in here like we did with the tube in the previous video. We could make 2 more cones and cut them out like we did before. But there's an easier way, and this is a good opportunity to introduce the thickness function in the part workbench. To use the thickness function, you select one or more faces. If we wanted the bottom to remain silent, if this was a vase or something we were making, we could only select the top and use the thickness function on that. But we want holes in both ends. I'm holding down Control key. So now I have both ends selected, both of those faces. And from the part menu, I would choose thickness. And notice with thickness, if I scroll up, now it's getting thicker. Shift key to move the object around. Roll the wheel forward to zoom in. This again is Blender navigation mode. Panning is holding the mouse wheel down with the shift key down and moving the mouse left, right, up, or down. So as I scroll my wheel forward, the thickness increases in the outward direction. I actually want this to be in the minus direction. So I'm going to click the FX icon, ss.ss, look for a wall thickness, and I'm going to multiply that times -1 to create that negative value. So now the thickness is going toward the inside. My radius for the bottom is the outside radius. And for the top, there are some options in here. We can use skin, pipe, recto verso. Zoom in here and look at the effect. With the intersection, we get that effect. Using arc, this is creating what's called a fillet on the top of here, but I'm just going to use intersection. We'll get into fillets in another video. I'm going to select the front view. I will select the object, fit selection in the center of screen. So this is our funnel. Now we should check our geometry. Let me save this file. Go to the file menu and save. Should always save before running check geometry because it can sometimes crash, particularly on complex models. It might not crash, but it might take it a really long time on a complicated model. You might end up giving up, force closing, and if you did not save your work, you will regret it. So we select the object to check. This icon here is analyze geometry for errors. On 0.19, you get this option screen. If you are using 0.18, you will not see this. Here we have the option to run the bob check or not. I recommend running the bob check. This is Boolean operation check, is what that stands for. It checks the model to see if it is suitable for use with Boolean operation check, Boolean operations. Sometimes you can get errors when running this bob check. It does not necessarily always mean there's something wrong or that the model is unusable. If you don't run a bob check and everything is fine, and you run a bob check and you see some errors, it might still be alright. Might or might not be okay. If it passes bob check, you can be pretty confident that your model is okay. So we're going to go ahead and run the check. Okay, no errors, that's good. The shape content gives some additional information about the object, how many edges, etc. Alright, so we've covered using cones, we've covered the Boolean fusion, we've covered the very handy thickness operation, we covered installing macros and running them. So I think we've done a pretty good job. on our way toward finishing a part workbench. Still lots of stuff to cover, and we'll get to that in the next video. So have a great day, and thank you for watching.